Greetings, Dr. Shoemaker and all my colleagues in EDUC 703. Welcome to my video. My name is Tisan Howard, and I am privileged to present to you today some ideas about Horace Mann, which was who my philosophy paper was about. Before I get into my discussion about his key ideas and everything like that, I just wanted to share my thesis statement, which I believe that Horace Mann exemplified greatly, which is that the purpose of education is, yes, to convey academic content to our students, but also to cultivate within them morals without sacrificing our own sense of character, our own sense of ethics and beliefs and identity. So let's get started. I wanted to start off by sharing a little bit about Horace Mann's formative years, his childhood. So he was born in a rural New England town called Franklin, and he was a farmer's child, so he had all kinds of farm responsibilities to do. He had to, feed chickens and things like that. And so early on, he began to develop a sense of hard work and industriousness, and that would later make its way into his philosophy of education. As he got older, he became involved with law and politics, and he subscribed to the Whig Party, which was in opposition to President Andrew Jackson at the time. So Jackson felt that all men should have a vote, like a one man, one vote policy. And the Whigs, they felt that the lower classes at the time, if they got an equal vote without being educated, without understanding what that vote meant, that would ultimately lead to what the Whigs called mobocracy, which is just rule by an illiterate, uneducated mob. Basically, it would just lead to tyranny, and they were not in agreement with that. In addition to Mann's political views, he was also appointed for a time to as Massachusetts Secretary of Education. And during that time frame, he would visit counties and schools in Massachusetts and make observations, write reports. And he noticed a lot of questionable things happening in the schools at that time, things that he was not in agreement with. So all of his experiences as a Whig, his political experiences, his experiences as being the secretary, all of those things convalesced to help him develop and conceptualize the common school, which is what he became well known for. So there are a few important tenets to know about the common school that he was conceptualizing. The first is that he wanted all children to receive a quality education. Children of all classes, irrespective of socioeconomic status, gender, ethnic background. He wanted all children to receive a common education. Background to that is that he wanted to circumvent that mob rule. So if all children were receiving a quality education, then they would become productive citizens of society. They would not be causing tyranny and anarchy and those kinds of things. The common curriculum that he kind of formulated was inclusive of reading, writing, math, and some of the arts. In addition to the academics, he also wanted to foster in children a sense of industriousness and frugality, thrift, and very important, Mann believed that the common schools should be funded by tax dollars. So since they would be basically funded by public taxation levies, he thought that they should be politically nonpartisan and also should not sanction or endorse any religious sect or belief one way or another. As Horace Mann moved from just conceptualizing the common school into now putting his ideas into practice, one of the first things that he did was to restructure the actual school environment. So prior to that time, the learning conditions in schools were very poor and just substandard. There were drafty buildings and uncomfortable seating for the children and poor lighting. And so what he did was he made architectural changes. So he improved the insulation and he made more ergonomic desk designs and installed better windows with lighting. And so even before like Abraham Maslow's time, he understood that without the proper environment, students would have more difficulty learning. Another thing that he did and he incorporated as part of his common school is that he abolished corporal punishment, and he encouraged teachers to relate to the students and to build relationships with them. The students' motivation and interests was more effective for learning than fear, via corporal punishment measures. As part of the instruction, he absolutely abhorred the rote memorization and recitation that was very prevalent during traditional New England schooling. He really wanted to stimulate critical thinking, and he especially loved the use of the induction method for that. One thing that is also related to the common school movement was that Mann really believed in the importance of having quality teachers to educate the populace. So he established normal schools as these, teacher preparation programs. In the normal schools, the teachers or the prospective teachers would gain, pedagogical knowledge. They had a clinical experience component, and their, track, their curriculum kind of paralleled what they would be instructing in the common school. Mann was essentially professionalizing the career of teaching. So although Horace Mann's common school movement was very successful in that it was established and it became commonplace, I guess, he did face a lot of opposition. He faced opposition from schoolmasters, which were back then male school teachers that believed that if he took away a corporal punishment, then the students would just revolt. So they fought him tooth and nail on that. He got opposition and antagonism from the Roman Catholics, who believed that, his moral instruction was too Protestant and not Catholic enough. And they ended up, kind of deviating and creating their own system of parochial schools. And then he even got opposition from Protestants who thought that his morals were not Protestant enough and that schools should only, instruct in Christian principles and be partisan, religiously partisan. With all of that opposition, Mann was able to engender support because he really knew his audience and he knew that what he had to offer was very valuable. So he had what was called a consensus style of leadership. So he had this uncanny ability to kind of see the middle ground where everyone had these mutual areas of interest, and then he built his cases and he built his reasoning and his rationale on that common area, and he was able to engender a lot of support that way. As I get ready to tie all of my ideas together, I wanted to share a quick quote from Martin Luther King Jr. And he said this: the function of education is to teach one to think intensively and to think critically. But education which stops with efficiency may prove the greatest menace to society. The most dangerous criminal may be the man gifted with reason, but with no morals. We must remember that intelligence is not enough. Intelligence plus character, that is the true goal of education. And so that's kind of what my thesis was built around. We have to teach our students to think critically, yes, and we do want to inculcate morals within them to instill values like kindness and hard work and the pursuit of excellence and all of those things. But even with all of that, we as teachers, we bring our own personal identity to the table, and we should not forget about that or divorce ourselves from our identity when we are presenting those things to our students. Yes, in the public school system, we're not going to be, preaching about Jesus because that, is unconstitutional. But we don't have to sacrifice our personal integrity on the altar of academics, putting forth content knowledge. So, in summary, intelligence plus character plus putting forth your own personal identity, that would be the ultimate goal of education. I hope you've enjoyed this video about Horace Mann. Thank you so much for watching.